Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 14 of the Willow Cove Crafts podcast, a podcast about knitting and sewing and my other crafty endeavors. My name is Emily, and you can find me on both Ravelry and Instagram as Willow Cove Crafts, all one word. Today is Sunday, November 14th, 2021, and I am coming to you from just outside of Madison in Verona, Wisconsin, in the United States. I hope the lighting in this video is okay. It is super overcast today. We're actually getting a little bit of snow, which I would say that's crazy, but it's really not that crazy for this part of the world. It's mostly just flurrying. It's not really sticking to the ground at all, but it is sticking to people's roofs. And, you know, it's just kind of a dark, dreary day outside. Perfect day to cozy up inside and do some knitting. It has been 2 weeks since I last recorded, and Dan and I have been up to a few things since then. So last weekend we were quite busy. We had tickets Friday night and Saturday night to go to a couple of different shows. So last Friday we went to see, it's a local band called Mama Dig Down's Big Brass Band. And they had a show at this venue that I had never heard of called Garver Mill in Madison. And the building itself is pretty old. It's an old feed mill, I learned, but they have refurbished it. I don't know when they did it, but it seems like maybe kind of recently they refurbished it and made it into a venue. And it was quite beautiful, lots of brick and exposed beams, very industrial looking, but that like kind of industrial chic look that I feel like is really in right now. Anyways, I'll put some video in at the end so you can see that. And then last Saturday, we went to see one of my favorite comedians, who is Eliza Schlesinger. She played at the Orpheum. She did her stand-up at the Orpheum in Madison. So I don't really have any video of that. Obviously, you're not allowed to film at a show like that. But it was very fun. I love Eliza's comedy. I think she's really great and entertaining and has a lot of really hilarious but solid insights into a lot of things. So if you haven't heard of her or seen her, she has a couple specials on Netflix that I highly recommend. And this was my third time seeing her live. She comes to Madison every couple of years, so I always try to go when she is here. Let's see, what else? Other than that, this past weekend, we really didn't do much. I feel like I hardly left the couch except to go to lunch yesterday. We had a friend over to watch some football, and we were just big loafs. Didn't do much, which is always really great when you are a knitter. Am I right? To start off today, I wanted to share with you what I am wearing. So this is, let me kind of stand up a little bit so you can see the whole thing. We've got a nice circular colorwork yoke and some colorwork cuffs. This is the Hiro sweater by Julia Farwell-Clay, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. I knit this sweater maybe 6 or 7 years ago. It's kind of deep from the vault. I knit it out of Cascade 220. This was, I believe I was in college? No. I think I knit this right after I graduated from college. And I remember it was during the Winter Olympics that year, and I was really inspired to knit like something that a person on Team USA would wear in a ski chalet. And I thought this really fit the bill. So again, that was the Hiro sweater. I knitted out of 4 colors of Cascade 220. I do not remember what the colors are. I should have a Ravelry page for this. I definitely have a Ravelry page for this sweater. I don't know how detailed I was in, documenting the yarn. I hope past me was good about those sorts of things. But anyways, the body of the sweater is knit in a single color, and I picked this dark blue. It's not really a navy, but it's kind of a step up from a navy, or a step lighter. And then we've got, a very red orange. Again, I was going for like 1980s ski chalet, Team USA. I just had this whole narrative in my head that I wanted to put out onto a sweater. So anyways, we got this like red orange, and then a white, and then a light blue as well. So yes, I think I actually, again, it's been so long, but I think that someone had knit a sweater in similar colors, or this sweater in similar colors, and I, of course, copied because I love to copy people. But yes, old sweater, it's holding up really well. I just gave it a glean this morning before filming, and it keeps me nice and cozy, and I still love it. It's a little bit out of the box for me color-wise, but again, it's got that like narrative, that vibe behind it, so I really enjoy this piece. I wear it all the time. I'm gonna be honest with you all, I don't feel like I have a lot of knitting to show you today. I have done a lot of knitting over the last couple weeks, but for reasons I will explain a little bit later in the episode, I really don't have a ton to show you. So I have no finished objects. I have some progress on the projects I showed you last week. So I will share that with you, and then we will get into some things to come that I'm really excited about. So please forgive me for my lack of content this episode. I am continuing to work on the same pair of socks that I have been working on the last few episodes. These are a Christmas gift for my mom. I really like to knit her a pair of socks for Christmas every year. She really enjoys getting them. She wears them to death, which is good. I love that pretty much every time I go over to their house, she is wearing her hand-knit socks, and I can always tell that they're very well loved. Anyways, this year I am knitting her socks out of Regia. This is the Arnie and Carlos design line. It is a 75% wool, 25% nylon, pretty standard sock blend, and it is color 3760. So I am currently on the second sock. I was hoping to have these done today, but I am nowhere close to finishing them. But here's my second sock. You can see last episode I was right where that marker is. And so since last time I have finished up the leg, done the heel flap and gusset, and am now working down the foot. This is the second sock. For my mom's socks, I like to do a 72 stitch sock. I nearly always knit my socks in size 1 needles. But my mom has wider feet and she likes to have things that are a bit roomier, so I go up to 72 stitches when I knit her socks. So, in case you are wondering. What else? I pretty much, even though, you know, I upped the stitch count, I still follow the other pieces of my standard sock recipe. So I usually do about 15 rounds of 2x2 rib, and then I will knit the leg until it is 7 inches, heel flap and gusset, and then my mom, as well as me, my 2 sisters, and my mom all have the same size feet, which makes knitting socks for them really easy. So we all have size 10 feet, so I will knit the foot until it is about 8 inches, and then I will do the toe. So maybe these will be done next time. We're getting close. I can't believe it's the middle of November already. I started these socks at least at the beginning of October, maybe the end of September, thinking I had all of the time in the world to knit them. And now, you know, I'm not worried about finishing them, but I can't believe how long they've taken me. We're in the middle of November. Christmas is gonna be here before we know it. And I have to produce. I don't know if I would be allowed to family Christmas if I didn't show up wearing hand knit socks. The family would revolt. I'm just joking. Again, making up narratives in my head. This next project I don't even want to show you because I did so little on it, but I think I've said before, but I'm always going to show you my projects if I have worked on them between episodes, even if it's just a few stitches. I really like seeing people's projects, even if it's in the exact same place. I just love seeing knits in progress. So whenever other podcasters are like, oh, I didn't work on it, or I like just did a row, so I don't want to show you, I'm always like, no, show us. I'd love to see it. So essentially this looks exactly like it did last episode. I maybe knit 2 rows on it. I'm talking about my Slipstravaganza blanket by Stephen West. And last time, where's my marker? Things are tangled over here. Last time I was where this marker is. So you can see, yep, 2 rows. But anyways, here it is. Last time I showed it to you, this ball of yarn is trying to make a run for it. That is sitting in my lap. Last time I showed you, I was still on this yellow stripe. So did not get a lot of love since last episode, but it did get some. It's not going to languish. To knit this blanket, I am using the yarn that is called for in the pattern, which is the West Wool Tandem. This is Stephen West's line of yarn, which I don't know if I said, this is the Slipstravaganza blanket by Stephen West. And he has a yarn line. The Tandem is the DK base, and it is 10% textile, 90% Auckland merino. And I am using a variety of colors that I will not go through today, except maybe I'll tell you my current color. That yellow that I am currently working with is the Glow colorway. I go through all of these colors in different episodes. It's in the description below the video in case you are wondering. But yes, slow and steady on this blanket. What else? I was talking to one of my friends about this blanket the other day, and she was saying, she's like, when you showed it on your podcast, I like really wanted to knit it because it looked so cool. And she's like, but then I am hearing you talk about how long it's taking and how many stitches are in a round, and now I don't want to make it, which I thought was very funny. It's definitely a super fun knit. It is a labor of love. You have to go into it knowing that it's going to take a long time. I think I've said previously, but the largest circumference of the blanket ends up being 1,600 stitches around or something like that. So it is not for the faint of heart. But I think if you approach it as a long-term project that you could potentially spend a year or two on, maybe longer, it's a fun thing to pick up here and now, especially this section that I'm working on currently. It's essentially just knitting, which is a nice relaxing thing if you don't want to think too hard about your project. I think it's really nice to have something kind of mindless on the go, and especially something like this with big long rows. You just kind of go, and you don't have to, even switching colors, like it happens so infrequently because your rows are so long. When you start a new color, you can like really settle in and knit that color for a while. So I am enjoying it. I just need to prioritize working on it a bit more. But yes. My last knitting work in progress this week is my Shawlography Mystery Knit Along, also by Stephen West. I am knitting it out of the Wool Barn using their Cashmere sock 4-ply base, which is a 80% superwash extra fine merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon. It is a fingering weight, and I am using 5 different colors, which I will show you maybe just all together here. I've put the names, I'm not gonna go through the color names today. I've done that in previous episodes, and again, it's in the video description below. But I've got these 5 colors over here. We've got a tan and a gray. And then over here, we've got a kind of medium tone brown, a purple, and a really light mauve-y pink. And as you can see, my cakes are getting kind of small. We're nearing the finish line. Last time I showed you, I think at this point, Stephen West himself has said you can show your shawl without any sort of spoiler warning. They're all over the Instagram. So I guess one final time, if you don't want to see the shawl progress, maybe skip ahead. But at this point, the whole pattern has been out for a while. People have been finishing them. So I'm guessing you've probably seen it by now, or what the final design looks like, I should say. But here is mine currently. It's quite big. And as you can see, where was I last time? I have a marker where I was last time. So last episode, I was a little over halfway done with the brioche section. And then I did this, I don't even remember what he calls this. This like kind of like crossing stitches section. This section, this stitch technique, I think it looks really cool. It was a real pain. I feel like I spent 2 nights just like knitting this like cross stitch section. My stitches got like really tight. And yeah, I recommend if you ever do this pattern, when you get to this section, the way you accomplish this is you wrap your stitch a ton, and so you like wrap a bunch of times, you knit them all as if they're a single stitch, and then the next time you do that row, you kind of unravel those wraps to make an elongated stitch, and then you do some passing of the stitches over. The thing that was painful about it is the wraps, you know, just as they're like shifting down your needle, they get really tight. And so I was having trouble pushing those wrapped stitches off of the cord and onto the needle. They were getting really tight. And so what I ended up doing that helped a little bit was I'm knitting these on my interchangeable ChiaoGoos. So this would not be an option if you are using fixed needles, but because I was knitting on my interchangeable set, I unscrewed my left-hand needle and put on a needle that was 2 sizes smaller so that I could push those wrapped stitches up onto the needle a little bit easier to knit that row where I was kind of undoing the wraps and resolving them. That helped a bit. It was still a very long, arduous process to knit that section. But since finishing that, I am now onto the border, which is a garter stitch applied border where you're kind of cycling through all of your different colors. And this has been really fun to knit, at least to me. Just some nice, easy garter stitch after all of this craziness that happened earlier in the shawl. So I'm maybe like a quarter to a third of the way done with the border. And I personally love an applied border. I think a lot of people do, because that means when you get to the end, you do not have to bind off hundreds of stitches. You know, maybe just have to bind off 30 stitches or whatever. I don't remember what the pattern will say at the end, but overall, I really enjoyed the process of knitting this shawl. I love the colors I picked. I don't know how much I will wear it. I try to remind myself that if I do wear it, it'll be kind of bunched up and not looking so busy. I've mentioned a lot of times, but I really typically tend to like simpler patterns, more classic patterns, which, you know, Stephen West has always, you know, really pushed the mold with his knitting patterns. They're so fun, they're so innovative, but they're just not always my personal style. But I do think I will wear this occasionally because of the colors. The color palette really is something that I enjoy. Sorry if you can hear my needles clicking every which way. It's just really hard to show this. So anyways, I don't know when this will be done. The border takes a while. You know, you always kind of get to the border and you feel like you're done or like really close to being done, and then you're not. But I'm not really like feeling the rush. I really have enjoyed knitting this border. Simple, easy, mindless knitting. Short little rows, because that applied border, you're just kind of knitting short little rows across the way. So yes, I will definitely work on this between now and next episode, but it might not be finished. I actually might not work on this between now and next episode. We'll see. I really have to knit my friend's baby a bonnet that I promised I would knit, and it's now getting cold. And, you know, that's a quick little project, but I don't know. I work full time, and then I feel like by the time I finish work and then go to the gym and then come home and eat, it's already really late. So I feel like I don't get a lot of knitting done during the week. So anyways, a small project such as a bonnet can end up feeling like it takes a while because, you know, knitting time is scarce. So I might set this aside to kind of, you know, push out, punch out, roll out that bonnet. What is that phrase? I don't know. Hopefully you all know what I mean. So yes, Slipstravaganza, Stephen West, almost done. And then it may or may not ever see the light of day. Hopefully, I'll force myself to wear it. That sounds bad. I think with a black shirt, this will look great. There you go. That is almost it for knitting content this week. I'm actually going to move along to my sewing works in progress, and then we're going to talk about knitting a little bit more at the end this time. For those of you who are returning viewers from last time, you might know that I am working on a quilt for my friend's baby. I was a terrible quilter the last 2 weeks and did not really do much work on it at all. I did a little bit, so I will show you. I am working on the Trippy quilt by Southern Charm Quilts, and I am using a jelly roll from Cotton and Steel, and this is what the blocks look like. These are not new blocks. These are ones that I have sewn previously. And since last episode, I prepped a few strips to make my next set of blocks, but this is like pretty much it. I have a couple more stacks of these, but all I did was make strips. I didn't actually produce any new blocks. So this project is also causing me a little bit of stress because the baby that it is intended for is going to be here. I think my friend said she's 36 weeks this week, so she's got about a month left. And there's absolutely no way I would finish this quilt in a month. But I would like to get it out to her before her baby's, 2 or 3 months old, So I'm gonna have to really try and prioritize some work on the quilt over the next few weeks. Yeah, it's not hard, it goes quick. I just want to be knitting instead of sewing, so I will make a plan. I'll say, I'm going to work on the quilt after work today. And then I end up sitting on the couch and knitting instead. So I'm going to have to really hold myself accountable to work on the quilt when I've kind of designated an evening for it. So anyways, my friends need to stop having babies just for a little bit. I can't keep up. If you're a returning viewer, you'll know that I had 4 little babies get popped out this year that I had to make things for, and it was a lot of baby knits, not baby making. Anyways, which brings me to my last little segment, which is where all my knitting time went this week. Last weekend, maybe towards the end of last week, I had this urge, and I don't know where it came from. It's maybe something, I was talking to my friend about it, and she was like, I feel like this is like a natural progression. I feel like this has been a long time coming, and it just finally hit. But I grabbed an empty notebook and just started sketching out designs. I had this, I just sat down and had this big brainstorming session, and, I was surprised at how quickly all of these ideas came to me, but I sketched out, 10 to 15 different accessory designs. And so I have been swatching. The last week I have nothing that I can really show you. I was mostly just, testing out stitch designs and stitch patterns with scrap yarn. Nothing official or nothing that I actually intend to, design with or knit samples with, but I literally all of my knitting time in the last week was just, playing around and testing things out. and, you know, experimenting. And so yeah, I have always kind of been interested in knitwear design. I've never really sat down and tried it because I thought I'm definitely more of an analytical person. The creative side of things doesn't tend to come as easily to me. And so I've always just kind of assumed that, like, oh, I think I could write a knitting pattern really well. I think I could edit a knitting pattern really well. But coming up with a concept might be tricky. And so I was very pleasantly surprised when I like actually sat down and tried to, I use the phrase squeeze your brain, which I read in a book somewhere. I'll have to go remember where that came from. But I really like that phrase, just to like sit down alone with your thoughts and just like really like push and see what you can come up with, squeeze your brain. So, you know, I sat down and I did that, and like the ideas have just been flowing, and I've been like very pleasantly surprised. I've actually like been like, which of these, you know, concepts or designs do I knit first? So I'm really excited to kind of start doing this, you know, making my own patterns. Yeah, it's kind of like crazy to say, and like I feel a little weird sharing that with you because I haven't actually produced anything yet. But it's something that like I've just been so excited all week. I've been like, my brain has just been like going constantly. You know, I'm actually trying to like calm down a little bit and like, you know, work on my projects, just to like simmer, because like when I get excited about something, I get really excited about it. So yes, I thought maybe I would show you. I think I've kind of settled on my first 2 samples that I might knit. So I thought, you know, I don't usually do acquisitions, but I thought why not, and show you what I am planning on working with, or the materials I am planning on working with over the next couple of weeks as I make my first design samples. I haven't quite decided which of these 2 I will start first. Again, I wanna, you know, I tend to get like really worked up and like really excited, and it actually causes me a lot of stress because I feel very frantic about things. So I'm just gonna start with 1 sample. I don't foresee myself, at least for now, having more than 1, you know, knitted design on the go. Also too, I still really like other people's patterns, and I really want to knit other people's patterns. So I'm trying to find the balance between, you know, knitting on my design, which, you know, maybe is a bit more secretive. I might not show that on the podcast, but then also knitting other people's designs because they're beautiful, and, you know, I still want those knitted items. So still trying to find that balance. But it's all very exciting to me. So I have this bag of yarn that some of this I purchased this week, and some of this I already had in my stash. I've mentioned before that I have a very sizable stash. So, you know, when I'm designing and knitting my samples, I want to make sure it is, you know, right, and that it's exactly how I want it to be. That being said, I do think it's smart to, you know, at least look at my stash and see if I have a beautiful yarn already that I would like to design something with. So I did go to my local yarn shop this week and purchase some Brooklyn Tweed shelter in the Woodsmoke colorway. That is upside down. Two, or as well, I should say, I really want to design with yarns that I'm like crazy about, my like real ride or die yarns. So, Brooklyn Tweed is definitely up there. And I've always really liked this Woodsmoke colorway. My intent for this is to make a cabled hat design. So you might see that in the coming weeks. And then the other yarn I have that I have pulled from my stash, this is another one of my like ride or die yarns. I love this yarn so much. I am so inspired by it whenever I see projects that other people have knit. And that is Spincycle. So I have quite a bit of Spincycle in my stash. I went and pulled out what's one of my favorite colorways, which is the Cold Comfort colorway. And this is right up my alley, just these like very soft pinky mints. And then I also had in my stash some of, oh, I should say this is the dyed in the wool, Spincycle dyed in the wool. This is their yarn that does the color shifting. But then I also had in my stash some of the Spincycle Verses, which is their marled yarn. You know, pulling this back, it reads gray, but if you look at it closely, it's actually a white and gray marl. And again, this is their Verses, and this is the Slow and Steady colorway. So these two yarns are the same weight. They're both a sport weight, but this one does the color shifting and this one is static the whole way through. So my plan for these, I am really inspired by, you know, I feel like the Spincycle, due to the color shifting, you can't have a pattern that's too busy. Otherwise it will get kind of lost. And I feel like brioche and slip stitch really show off this yarn super well. And I feel like a lot of pattern designers have created patterns using Spincycle and those stitches. So this I don't have like as concrete of a plan. The hat I have swatched, I know exactly what I am doing. This one I'm still playing around with a bit. But I'm really inspired by it, and I would like one of my first patterns to be out of this yarn. Yes, what else to say about pattern designing? Yeah, just trying to come up with concepts, things that I really love. I find myself kind of veering into the land of making these like kind of wild designs, and then I try to remind myself that, you know, I am not a wild knitter. I like simple, classic designs. Maybe, you know, it has a little element to it that makes it a little bit more modern, but I like when things are like very clean and basic. So trying to also keep that in mind, you know, creating something that is unique. Obviously, I would never want to put something out there that, you know, is close to something someone else has made or whatever, but also like is pretty basic and classic because that's what I like to knit. So yes, a lot of ideas, trying to sort through them and straighten them out. It's been a bit overwhelming. I feel like I haven't properly relaxed in a week because my brain is going at a mile a minute at all times. But yes, I think I might swatch with this afternoon just to see. I have a couple ideas that I would like to use this for, but I'm not quite married to any of them just yet. So yes, super excited. I am happy to be going down this route. And then too, there's the whole like technical side of things that I have been trying to research and learn about, like, you know, what software do you use to write a knitting pattern? How do you make a chart, you know, on the computer? How do you find a tech editor? Because I really, like I said, even though I'm new to this, I am a bit of a perfectionist and want to make sure that what I'm putting out is of really high quality. So I am hopefully going to be getting my patterns tech edited and test knit. That's not a problem for today, but I have been trying to research it. So again, if you have any suggestions for resources around the like technical side of pattern design, I would love to hear about that, because that's the part that I'm not quite so familiar with. You know, I can come up with a design and a sample, but then, you know, actually putting together a PDF file, maybe not something I'm as familiar with. So anyways, I've been talking about this for a very long time, so we will switch gears. And I think that is actually it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. And I will chat with you all again in a couple weeks. I am planning on filming again the weekend after Thanksgiving. I believe that is 2 weeks from now, which is crazy. It's already almost Thanksgiving. So anyways, I will chat with you all later. Have a great rest of your day, a couple weeks until we chat again. Bye everyone.